Unless you're Billy, that kid stuck in the fridge, you know that there are many ways to play through Fallout 4. You can restrict yourself to certain weapons or armors, delegate all of the killing to a companion, or even ignore things like buying and selling items. With so many different ways to play through the game, the sky truly is the limit. And that's where I'm aiming today as I try to beat Fallout 4 while relying only on murder. You might be wondering, what do you mean by relying only on murder? Well, I'll tell you. I'm restricted to only items obtained through acts of murder. I can't pick up any items off the ground or from containers, nor can I buy or sell any items at vendors. This does exclude a few quest-related items, like the cigar in Kellogg's house for instance. You have to pick it up to progress the story, so it doesn't count. Other than that, I am limited to only items I find from corpses. But not just any corpse will do, only the ones that I make that way. If someone or something is killed by anything not me, its goodies are off limits. At first, I thought all of the caps that I gathered from my victims would be worthless. But after a bit of thought, I decided to make an executive decision and allowed myself to use those caps for things like bribery and medical services. Now that that's out of the way, let's get started. This run begins like any other, with a long, hard look in the mirror. War isn't the only thing that never changes. I admired my robot, played with my son, and was rudely interrupted by an unwanted solicitor at the door. It was the Vault Tech rep, and he assured me that if I'm not buying what he's selling, there would be consequences. And since his charisma stat's higher than mine, I caved. Because I did absolutely no research before this run, and it's been so long since I've played Fallout 4, it took me a few minutes of fiddling with my special stats to realize that I had no idea which perks I wanted or what stats I would need for those perks. So I settled on 5 strength, 3 perception, 5 endurance, 2 charisma, 5 intelligence, 3 agility, and 5 luck. And I'll tell you what, that got me later. You'll see. I named my character Stabby Joe and continued on. Fun fact, I didn't end up stabbing anybody in the entire run. I had a quick chat with my wife, watched some television, and ran like hell to the vault. I must have been fussy with all the commotion going on, because as soon as I got there, they sent me straight to nap time. I had a bad dream, woke from my 200-year nap, and shed a virtual tear for my dead wife. I then hunted down all of the rad roaches for their meats, and got my hands on the Pip-Boy. I dropped everything but the tasty roach snacks because the other things didn't come from murder, and I opened the vault door and was finally ready to begin. I went to Sanctuary and spoke to Codsworth, decided I could not pick up the Your Special book, and pondered at the body outside of Sanctuary about whether or not I should allow myself to loot all corpses or not, but decided against it. I punched a couple of bugs on my way to Concord, and then killed some raiders for my first gear and level up. I took Big Leagues as my first perk, because I wasn't sure if ammo would end up being a problem or not, and wanted the extra melee damage in case I had to fall back on it. After the level up, I told Preston to call a hotline to find someone who cares, and set off for Diamond City. Along the way, I murdered Trash Can Carla, sent Wolfgang and Simone to meet the big guy upstairs, and then Trudy had the audacity to give me a reward, 100 caps, that I had no way to drop. Any chance of peace just flew out the proverbial window. I got harassed by some ghouls in Lexington and was forced to drink several gallons of the Commonwealth's finest Chernobyl water. Arriving at Cambridge Police Station, I rescued Paladin Dance. And by rescue, I mean I just kinda smacked a couple ghouls with a pool cue. Paladin Dance asked me for some more help, but I told him that I was too busy to help him fix his stereo. I needed to find some more water after that little scuffle. I think this crab was trying to warn me about swimming in the water or something, but I ignored him and went for a dip and a drink. On the other side of the river, I discovered 2 things. 1, radiation is starting to become a real problem. And 2, those filthy commies over at the Charles U Amphitheater needed to die. It took a good chunk of my supplies, and I almost died, but it was worth it, because death is a preferable alternative to communism. I discovered a few new locations on my way to Diamond City, and after arriving, I went to see Dr. Sun to heal my radiation. I then paid him to heal my rads 3 more times to make up for the caps that Trudy had given me. After seeing the problems of radiation this early on, I took a look at the perk chart to see which perks I could take to help make things easier. One of the perks that I wanted was ghoulish, because I figured radiation healing me would probably help. But ghoulish requires an endurance of 9, and I only have 5. Remember earlier when I said that stats would be a problem later? Yeah, this is what I was referring to. After the doctor, I went to Nick Valentine's detective agency and spoke to Ellie. She told me that he wasn't home. He's been staying over at a friend's house. She gave me directions to Park Street Station, and I was off to find Nick. Stealth was my friend when dealing with the triggermen. Not that they were difficult or anything, I just didn't really have a lot of healing supplies. I won't bore you with all the details inside, so I killed Dino, talked to Nick, failed to convince Darla to turn on Skinny Malone, and everyone had to die. At the surface, Nick said to meet him back at Diamond City, but robots were made to do what we say, not the other way around, so I didn't do that. I went back to the Museum of Freedom to help Preston and company, because I was thinking of siding with the Minutemen, but changed my mind halfway through the museum because building recruitment beacons at settlements just seemed like it could be a real hassle, and I really didn't want to deal with it. So I decided to side with the Brotherhood. I finished killing all the raiders in the Deathclaw though, because I'm here. Why not? Preston pulled a Trudy and gave me some fusion cells and caps as a reward. So I dropped the fusion cells on the ground and refused to walk Preston home from school. Back in Diamond City, I spoke with Nick and Ellie. He gave me an idea of where to go next, and she gave me some more trash, an outfit and some more caps. I put the clothes neatly away in a pile in the middle of the floor and left to go see the doctor to heal my radiation again. And then I paid him to do it another 5 times to waste the caps that Preston and Ellie had given me. Neither Nick nor I could pick the lock to Kellogg's house, so I tried to bribe Geneva for the key. She told me that I didn't have enough caps and that she don't want no scrubs. So, time for more murder, I suppose. After killing a few raiders, I had the necessary caps for the bribe and made it inside Kellogg's house to look for clues. I found his special room, and then a clue, and then Nick whistled for dog meat, and he came running all the way from the gas station. And he didn't even bring me a drink or a sandwich or anything. Worthless mutt. I told Nick I needed some space and was off to find a rival murderer. Nothing of note happened on the way to Fort Hagen. I followed Dogmeat, looting only my kills along the way, and upon arrival, I told Dogmeat to go back to Red Rocket where he belongs. The synths inside the fort weren't too difficult, but a lack of healing supplies was becoming a problem again. It took a few attempts to kill Kellogg, but you know what they say, the 3rd time's the charm. But not for me though. Or the 4th, or even the 5th. 6! That's right, it took 6 tries. 6 was my lucky number. I picked his corpse clean, equipped his weapon and outfit, and stole his identity. He's gonna have really bad credit after this. And I watched the Pridwin arrive in the Commonwealth and decided now is just as good a time as any to take Dance to ArcJet. Back at Cambridge Police Station, I told Paladin Dance I was ready to help and we set off down the road on our adventure. We murdered a few people, and then some puppies, and we arrived at our destination. Inside ArcJet, Dance wanted to be a glory hound and was stealing all of my kills. So I turned on the power and gave him a nice toasty fire bath so he could think about what he's done. I burned myself getting a little too close to the oven, and we pushed forward to get the radio transmitter. Back at the police station again, I took the stairs to the roof and took the vertibird to the Pridwin without using the minigun because I didn't kill anyone for it. I listened to the head cheese's speech, met with the crew, and then returned to Maxon for my next mission. The Elder hates synths, but he hates super mutants even more, so he sent me to Fort Strong for some good old-fashioned genocide. The behemoth took a little bit of finessing, but overall he was pretty easy. Probably because I'm playing on easy. Shh, that'll be our little secret. And after the behemoth, the inside of the fort was kind of a cakewalk. I probably should have chosen a harder difficulty. Next, I went back to Diamond City to find Nick airing all of my dirty laundry to the paparazzi. I'm sure if my name was Paul, I could come up with some clever joke about machines and trusting them with your privacy. After Nick saw the prize that I got from Kellogg's Noodle, he suggested we go to the memory den in Good Neighbor. I told him I couldn't trust him anymore, and I went on my own. I introduced myself to Finn, said hello to Hancock, and met Nick at the memory den. After some back and forth with Dr. Amari, I was into Kellogg's memories. I won't waste your time on this part. If you're watching this kind of video, you already know how this goes. After completing the quest, I leveled up and took Ghoulish as my perk, and was off to the glowing sea to find Smart Hulk's cousin. It was then that I realized I had bamboozled myself once again for failing to read the fine print. That's how they get you.
You see, the problem is that ghoulish doesn't work how I originally thought. You still take radiation damage, just less, at least for the first few levels. Rank 4 ghoulish was what I wanted, but it requires level 50 to obtain, and I'll tell you now that I wasn't even half of that level by the end of the game. I couldn't even make it halfway to the crater of Adam before dying of radiation poisoning. I needed some sort of protective equipment for the trip, and since power armor isn't an option because you can't take a suit of armor off of a corpse, a hazmat suit was what I would need to survive the trek through the sea. I figured Heisenberg would probably have some suits, so I went back to Diamond City to learn of an upcoming drug deal. I killed Cook, went to the rendezvous with Paul, and then murdered everyone. I took the caps from Nelson Latimer and let Paul keep the chems, since I couldn't take them anyway. Now that I had the secret code, it was time to get my suit. Inside Markowski's, I shot Walt and Jesse and took their suits. And with that, I was back off to the glowing sea. Things went much better on the second trip. I did some running, and some more running, and then I ran into some rad scorpions, and I ran some more. I ran all the way to the crater of Adam, where I let his children do the heavy lifting before stealing the killing shot on a rad scorpion. They told me where I could find Virgil, and I was on my way. A quick hop, skip, and a jump away, and I'm in Virgil's cave. I ran past the Deathclaw and went inside. He told me I was crazy to try to get into the Institute, so I told him to shut his mouth and start talking. He said I'd have to kill a courser, and some other stuff too. I wasn't really paying attention. He said kill something, and that was enough for me, really. Next stop is Green Tech Genetics to kill a Terminator. The gunners throughout the building weren't much of a threat. They actually provided me with a good supply of ammo and healing supplies. I used a missile launcher that I'd found earlier to make short work of the courser and the gunner hostages, and then shot the synth in the cage. And with the courser chip in hand, I'm headed back to the memory den. Back in Good Neighbor, Dr. Armani told me that she couldn't decode the chip for me. She doesn't understand numbers or something. But she told me about a group of Harriet Tubman wannabes that might be able to help me out. So I headed over to the Old North Church, and wouldn't you know it, they did help me. So I murdered them all for it. Desdemona, Glory, Tinker Tom, Dr. Carrington, Deacon, and even Little Drummer Boy. All dead. It needed to happen at some point anyway. Might as well be now. I took the data back to Virgil, and he gave me the plans for the signal interceptor. He made me promise to stop by the FEV lab when I get to the Institute and pick up the cure for him, and I agreed, even though I had no intention of doing that. In fact, he never saw me again. I traveled back to the Pridwin to talk to Elder Maxon, and he sent me to the airport to make good use of those plans. With all the junk that I'd collected from the bodies, I actually had enough supplies to build everything without having to look for more junk. I got another pep talk from the Elder, and was teleported to the Institute. Inside, I took the elevator and spoke to my robot son, and then to my real son, who is older than me, and is called Father. That's not confusing or anything. After our chat, I spoke with Dr. Lee and failed to convince her to leave the Institute, so I went to the FEV lab to get the evidence to convince her to leave. And while I was in there, I couldn't help but laugh, thinking about Virgil, sitting in his cave, eagerly waiting for me to come back. He's gonna be so upset. With the proof in hand, I got Dr. Lee to agree to return to the Brotherhood and began to speak with the other department heads. After more social interaction than I'm comfortable with, I downloaded the data for Scribe Halen, spoke to my son Father one more time, and zapped myself back out of the Institute. Next on the agenda is Liberty Prime. I spoke to Maxon, who sent me to Ingram, who sent me to Dr. Lee. I'm getting real tired of being everybody's errand boy. I convinced Dr. Lee to work on Liberty Prime and was sent to find a high-powered magnet. I fast-traveled to Drumlin Diner to make my way east to Medford Memorial Hospital. I came across Gene, who wanted to sell me his dog. I declined and then shot his dog. He didn't seem too upset by it, but he did tell me that he had changed his mind about selling her. I then murdered him, looted his corpse, and continued on with my adventure. About a dozen dead mole rats later, I made it to the hospital. I took out the super mutants out front and proceeded to work my way through all of the mutants inside. I then wasted more time than I should have looking for the high-powered magnet before Googling it to find out that it's behind a locked door that I couldn't pick. I picked through all the corpses but was unable to find a key, so I decided to look elsewhere for the magnet. I read that there's one at the airport in the warehouse, but that was a lie. There was no magnet. Or I was just too stupid to find it. It could honestly be either. Being 0 for 2, I decided screw it, I'm going to the Mass Bay Medical Center. I blasted my way through the gunners and found the MRI machine on the 9th floor. I technically failed the challenge by looting the magnets from the machine because it has a container-style interface. I might have been able to get one from a random enemy, but found no evidence in a 2-minute Google search that said that a high-powered magnet could spawn in an enemy's inventory, so I felt it was okay to take the magnets. If you disagree, please feel free to dislike the video. Once again back at the airport, I built the actuators and spoke to Proctor Ingram for my next task. Liberty Prime needs nukes, so I'm headed back to the glowing sea. At the Sentinel site, I killed some ghouls and some mole rats and found some crazy guy worshipping the nukes. He said he was here first, but I told him I was here second, so they're mine. I killed him and his Assaultron and liberated the nukes for Liberty Prime. After powering up Optimus, I spoke with the Elder again, and he told me that dance is a damn dirty sin. That being a capital offense in the Brotherhood, it fell to me to do what I do best. I got Halen to spill her guts and give up Dance's hiding spot. I then hunted him down, blew his head off with a shotgun, and took his stuff. I reported back to the Elder yet again, and he sent me to talk to Kells. He sent me to take out the railroad and bring back Pam. So I gave myself a pat on the back for taking care of half of that earlier, and then fast traveled back to the Old North Church, hacked Pam, and returned for my next mission. Next up is the beryllium agitator. I hopped on the vertebra and we were on our way to mass fusion. Again, I didn't use the minigun and waited for them to drop me on the rooftop. I killed some synths, and on my way back through, I found this. Just look at it. It's amazing. I watched him go for like 5 minutes. I eventually tried to kill it, but by doing so, I made it far more powerful than I could have ever imagined. Further in, I used the terminal to shut down the Assaultrons, and then blasted them into 1,000 pieces with my shotgun. I changed into my hazmat suit and retrieved the agitator. The sentry bot killed me the first time, but that time doesn't count, because I said so. On the second attempt, I took him down with a dozen Molotovs that I'd collected and the minigun that I got from Glory. With Liberty Prime finally finished, it's time for the long walk to CIT. I let Prime do the heavy lifting with the synths along the way, and decided it would be fun to pick a fight with Bunker Hill. That was a mistake. Not that they were a threat or anything, it's just that the essential NPCs continued to follow us, and Liberty Prime eventually just kinda quit. I ran back to shoot them, and then he eye-lasered me into a pile of ash. I was more careful on the second trip, because there was no way that I'm following Liberty Prime to CIT 3 times. After we arrived, Prime blasted a hole in the ground, and we entered the Institute for the final assault. I only had 1 stim pack and a handful of irradiated blood packs left, but with the Brotherhood at my side, it was more than enough. We blasted our way through some synths, I shot Father at his head, and fought my way to the reactor. I set the charge, left my robot son behind, traveled to safety, shot Maxon in his stupid face, and then blew the Institute to hell, and I beat Fallout 4 while relying only on murder. Sort of. This challenge was a lot of fun. If you're looking for an interesting way to play through the game, I'd recommend this one. Overall, it wasn't too difficult. You come across plenty of weapons and ammo, but healing supplies are a little scarce. If you liked the challenge and enjoyed the video, please leave a comment and hit that like button. If you didn't like the video, please hit the like button anyway. Or don't. Your call. Don't forget to subscribe for future videos. Thanks for watching and have a great day.